Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. This is an update of my Soul-Eater Necromancer tank build for the High Isle patch. So the Soul-Eater build is a Necromancer tank build that focuses mainly on ultimate regeneration, getting ultimate back as fast as possible. But not only that, it will help the group do the same, so your group members are also going to get the same benefit. The way we do this is by combining gear that has benefits to ultimate gain, regeneration, reduced cost, and then we add a selection of skills that do a similar thing. The result is we have a constant supply of the Colossus Ultimate, which absolutely destroys the enemy, and we can keep using the Colossus on every single ad pull and easily multiple times on every boss. In difficult situations, we can also use this build for generating the Reanimate Ultimate to resurrect our allies, or maybe barriers, which would help us to overcome very difficult situations. The Necromancer has a good range of skills that are used for tanking, and with this build our main focus is on ultimate. However, we will utilise all the Necromancer's ability to summon and conjure spirits and then sap the life from the corpses to gain huge amounts of ultimate. So if we start off here by looking at the race, and the race I've gone with is the Imperial. Other good options would be the Nord for the resistances and the ultimate gain and the max stats, or Redguard for more sustain. You may also use the Argonian, as it's going to work well with some of the gear sets that we're using. So with the Imperial, we are going to get increased max health by 2,000, increased max stamina by 2,000, and reduced cost of all abilities by 6%. This includes block, roll dodge, break free, ultimate, everything. For our Mundus stone, we're using the Atronach for the extra Magicka recovery. This is very important because this build is very Magicka intensive. For the consumables, we're using smoked bear haunch for the food. This is going to give us max health, and it's also going to provide us with health recovery, stamina recovery, and Magicka recovery. The reason I've gone with this is because we do need to have high recovery to make this build work, and to be able to sustain everything that we're going to need to do to make this build work how it's supposed to. For the potions, you've got kind of two options here. You can use Magicka potions, even the looted potions. When you're going through ad pulls and you're trying to proc one of your gear sets, you just use a potion, and that's going to give you your ultimate back, and it's also going to give you some Magicka that we're going to use for most of our spells. In other situations, mostly boss fights, you're going to want tri-stat potions that are going to give you all of your recoveries and all of your resources back. So that is the two options you've got for your potions. If we have a look at our attributes and stat sheet, so max Magicka is 18.2k, max health is 37.5k, and our max stamina is 23.4k. And we've got 22 points into Magicka, 12 into health, and 30 into stamina. If we buff up by casting our Mender, our backing in armor, and using a potion, and look at our character sheet, we've got 2,400 mag recovery, 1.5k health and stamina recovery, and then 26.4k physical and spell resistance. On our advanced stat sheets, 700 block cost and 79% block mitigation, and that is everything for the stats. If we have a little look now at the gear for this build, there's been a few changes to this version of the build compared to what was on the website and the previous version. We've changed a few little things to help with the little problems that we discovered along the way while we've been playing it over the last patch. So first of all, we have got the Drake's Rush set, and we are using this for the max health, the max stamina, and then when you bash an enemy, you and up to 3 group members within 15 meters gain major heroism for 12 seconds, granting 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This can occur once every 18 seconds. So this is a group ultimate buff. We're going to provide ultimate for our group by using this gear set. We're also using Drake's Rush on the shield, the hands, the legs, and the chest. The next gear set we've got is Arcasis. And for this gear set, we're going to get max health. We're going to get some resistances with armor. We've got more max health. And then whenever you drink a potion while in combat, you and 3 group members gain 44 ultimate. And this can occur once every 30 seconds. So we are going to be setting up our jewelry to benefit by trying to use this every 30 seconds on cooldown. We are using this on the head, the shoulder, the waist, the feet, and one of the rings. The next gear set is the Potentate set. So for this one, we are benefiting from the 3-piece. So reduces the cost of your ultimate by 15%. So we only use this on the back bar with the main ultimate that we plan on using. We're using this on the Ice Staff and on one of the rings. And finally, we've got the Talk of Tonal Constancy. Now, the reason why I'm using this is for the Necro. The Necro in particular suffers with difficult sustain, especially on the stamina side of things. We also have quite an intensive Ultigen build here, which requires a lot of resources. So rather than trying to use the mythic item we had in the previous version, I brought in this one to try and boost our sustain. So while stamina is less than 50%, increases your magic recovery by 450. While your magic is less than 50%, you gain stamina recovery by 450. So what this does is, this takes us up to like 3k magic recovery when it procs. So when we're low on stamina, we're up to 3k mag recovery. When we have really low magicka, we have about 2.5k stamina recovery. And we're going to utilize this in a way which I'll discuss in a few moments. So for the gear, I am using Decisive on the one hand to benefit from the ulti gain a bit more. So whenever you gain ultimate, you have a 27.5% chance to gain one additional ultimate. So this is going to be a very, very, very often that this is going to proc, because we're going to have lots of different ticking ultimate, and then we're also going to be using this to gain even more back. I'm using this with a Prismatic Recovery enchant on the one-hander just to get some health, some magicka, and some stamina. On the shield, we go Sturdy and Tri-Stat, and we do the same for all the body pieces as well. So we go Sturdy on every piece, because we need to reduce our stamina cost down to as low as possible on blocking. This is vital because Necromancers in particular are difficult to sustain on the stamina side of things, because they have no skills that bring in stamina while blocking that are worth using. On the Ice Staff, we use an Infused Crusher. Obviously, we're trying to provide some group benefits as well, so we are providing that additional physical and spell resistance reduction to the enemy targets by using this. On the jewelry, we go Infused Potion Cooldown, we go Infused Magicka Recovery, and Triune Potion Cooldown. What we're trying to do here is maximize our efficiency in reducing how often we can use a potion without going too far. We don't want to be proccing it too soon and then wasting the potion and not gaining the benefit from our Arcasis set. So we want to get it around the 30-second mark. So that's why I've only used 2 potion cooldown, and I'm maximizing some of my stats as well. I've got 1 Triune in there, and then we've got some Infused Mag Recovery for a bit more sustain. But the gear sets that you could use with this build, so you could use Akaveri Dragon if you wanted something a bit different. That is a 5-piece gear set that you can get from Eastmarch. We've got Hide of the Werewolf, which is an Overland set from Glenumbra. You could use a monster set if you wanted to with Bloodspawn or Baron. And we've got the Pearl to Elnathan Mythic that you could use as well if you wanted to switch out the Talk of Tonal Constancy. Now, Arcasis you're going to get from Stone Garden. Drake's Rush you're going to get from Black Drake Villa. And the Potentate set comes from Cyrodiil, or the Guild Traders, so one of the elite vendors in Cyrodiil. Let's move on to the skills for this build. So on our front bar, we have got Pierce Armor. This is a taunt skill, and it's also going to debuff the enemy with Major and Minor Breach, meaning our group will do more damage. We are reducing the enemy's physical and spell resistance by a lot, so 2,174, 5,948, plus our Crusher Enchant as well, so we are providing a lot of pen benefits to our group. Next we use Heroic Slash, and we use this only for the Minor Heroism. So we've already got Major Heroism with Drake's Rush, we're also going to get Minor Heroism by using this particular skill. So they stack together because one is major and one is minor. Next we've got Blast Bones. This skill will create corpses. That is the only reason we use it. So creates a corpse on death. This is basically a spammable skill that we're going to use at any point in time where we're not doing anything else. We just cast Blast Bones to create corpses, and we're going to use another skill to make use of those corpses so that we can get ultimate benefits. We've got Spirit Guardian. This is a multifunctional skill, so it's going to stay with us for 16 seconds. It is going to be 10% damage mitigation. So 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit. It gives a heal, usually to us, but it might give a heal to our group as well. It creates a corpse when it dies, and it also gives us more sustain via our Living Death passives. So that is why we are using this skill. Next, one of the most integral skills for this build, Necrotic Potency. So we basically create corpses and then we use this skill. So we grant ourselves 6 ultimate and heal ourselves for 1.6k every 1 second for 2 seconds per additional corpse. So if we've got 3 or 4 corpses on the ground, we're going to get more healing over time. So this is why we don't have a healing skill per se with Hungry Scythe, because we're going to benefit from the combination of corpses with Necrotic Potency and our Spirit Mender to heal ourselves. The heal from this will scale based on our max health. We also get reduced damage taken by 3%. so it has quite a few different functions. But the idea is that we're going to consume as many corpses as possible to get ourselves a heal and to get as much ultimate as possible by using necrotic potency. And one of the lovely benefits of the skill as well is it's free and doesn't cost anything to us to use it. And the last skill on the front bar is replenishing barrier. We use this for a couple of reasons. So if we need to use it because there's an emergency situation, we get a 25k damage shield. We also get magicka every time a ward dissolves, and we get ultimate back. So if we have to use it, we are going to get some ultimate benefits because it's going to give us ultimate back when the ward dissolves. We're going to get magicka back as well. We're giving our group and ourselves a shield, but the main reason we're using this is for the magicka raid passive, which is going to give us 10% more magicka recovery. If we have to, we can slot other ultimates here instead. So if you wanted to use renewing animation, if you're using the group finder to queue for some veteran dungeons, for example, you could just use renewing animation instead, because if all your allies die, if your group members are all dead, this is going to be the easier way to get them all back alive. So using this, because we're going to be able to farm ultimate very, very quickly, so we're going to be able to benefit from renewing animation, and we also get resources back when we use it. So there is the option of using that ultimate instead. Onto our back bar, and we have got Frost Clench, another great skill. So for this one, we get it's basically our backup magicka range taunt that also applies chilled effect, which means we get minor maim and minor brittle. It also procs major maim by using it as well. So we reduce enemies' damage by 15% in total because we get that chilled effect, which means we get that minor maim. So it's another group buff as well. Well, it's another enemy debuff that increases our group's DPS with the minor brittle. So that's why we're going to be using that. If you need more range, because this is only 15 meters, then you just swap this out for inner fire. Next we use Pulsar, and we're using this for crowd control. So this is AoE crowd control and a debuff. So what it does is this allows us to immobilize enemies with elemental blockade and pulsar. So this gives us a higher chance to proc the chilled effect. What we then do is when we put blockade down, if the enemy is chilled, they get immobilized. So it's an immobilization as one of the main reasons. Additionally, it also applies AoE minor mangle, reducing enemies' health by 10%. It also will proc, because it's the chilled effect, again, it's AoE minor maim and minor brittle, and it will give ourselves and our group minor protection, reducing the damage we take by 5%. So a very, very good multifunctional skill. Next we've got Blockade of Frost, and we use this because it's going to give us an immobilization with the chilled effect, as I said. So when we use Pulsar and Blockade, we get the chilled effect, we get the immobilization. We also use this mostly to proc our back bar enchant, so the Infused Crusher. It's going to proc on cooldown for the entire duration that this is down on the ground. So that's the main reason for using it, is to maintain our Infused Crusher enchant. Next we've got Beckoning Armor. Now this is our chain skill and our major resolve skill. So it's going to boost our resistances by 5,948 for 20 seconds. It's going to create corpses, which is another reason why we use it. And while active, enemies that strike you with range attacks will be pulled towards you once every 2 seconds. Now you can refresh this every second. So if enemies are attacking you and they're at range, when they hit you with an attack, it's going to be pulled in automatically with this skill. If you refresh this, the timer also refreshes. So you could essentially range taunt all the enemies and use Beckoning Armor, spamming it to get a better chain. The fact that it also creates a corpse means we've now got 3 corpse skills that we're able to benefit from with that necrotic potency. The next skill is Skeletal Arcanist, and we use this, again, it's purely for the corpse. So we cast it, it's going to do damage, and we get a corpse created by using it. This is a bit of a flex skill, so if you wanted to use something else, this would probably be the first skill that you drop, but thanks to using this, we now have 4 corpse skills that we can use for necrotic potency. Finally, we have Colossus. Now you can use either morph. I like Glacial because it does a stun, and sometimes that can be quite helpful. When you've pulled in the enemies, you drop this down, it stuns them, and it applies major vulnerability, increasing the damage that enemies take by 10% for 12 seconds. So that is up to you, but the other morph is good as well. It's a choice that you can make. This is the main reason for kind of generating ultimate so fast. We're also, this build is completely surrounded by the idea of building ult for our group and ourselves and providing as many Colossus as possible. Yes, people may argue that the Turning Tide gear set is also there with a higher uptime, which is somewhat true, because Turning Tide has a 66% uptime, With this build, we're going to get a very high uptime as well. But it's the additional benefits, the fact that we're giving the benefits to our group also. We're giving our group the Ultigen so that we get more group DPS. And it's just a bit of fun to play as well. It's a different type of build because we are corpse creating, corpse spamming. Other skills that you could use if you wanted to, so you've got balance. If you need more magical sustain, you could use empowering grasp if you want to provide another group buff. You could use agony totem if you want to use a fear and something that's going to like cause problems for stuff immediately. You could use silver leash if you want a more consistent chain skill. For the passives, the main ones you want to use. So for Gravelord, you've got reusable parts. This is very important because it's going to reduce the cost of our corpse creation skills by 50%. The other ones are not that important in this particular skill line. Bone Tyrant, we've got this one which is going to give us magicka and stamina. Reduce the damage we take from damage over time abilities. So again, this is a good one to have. Increase healing received, you can take it. And increase max health, which is useful as well. Living Death. With the Living Death ones, again, they're all very useful. So increase healing by 8% when we have got a negative effect on us. Near-death experience is really nice because we get increased healing the lower health we are. Corpse consumption, increased ultimate gain, even more ultimate, once every 16 seconds. And this is the main one for us, is increased recovery by 200 when we have a Spirit Mender active. For your one hand and shield, you take everything because they're all useful. Destruction Staff, you take everything, even the Trifocus passive. So quite often in some of my builds, you won't see the Trifocus passive. In this particular one, you will, because what happens is if you're low on stamina, you switch to your back bar and you're going to block with magicka. The reason why we're doing that is because we're using the Talk of Tonal Constancy to be able to do that and to generate stamina, and we're going to generate stamina fast because it's going to proc. When we're low on magicka, we're going to get more stamina back. When we're low on stamina, we're going to get more magicka back. So we're going to chop and change between the two bars to be able to sustain on this Necro build. Penetrating magic, you don't have to take that, but everything else is useful. So increased status effect, definitely take that. Ancient Knowledge is what makes the Ice Staff a tank weapon. So increased the amount of damage we can block by 20% and reduces the cost to block by 36% while we're on this bar. This build is 7 heavy, and we don't have a choice to change that because it is what it is. We're using our cases on the head, so we don't use a monster set, so we can't switch the gear slots around. So we have 7 heavy. What this means is we're going to get reduced damage taken by martial attacks by 1% per heavy armor piece. So we've got 7% reduced martial attacks. Increase the amount of damage you can block by 1%, so 7% there. We get increased resistances. We want to take all the passives here, increase resistances, health recovery, restore, resources, 757 resources every 4 seconds when we take damage. Increase max health by 14%. We get more resources back when we heavy attack, and we have increased healing received. We also want the Undaunted passives, Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal, both kind of important. Obviously we only get 2% on Undaunted Metal, but it's better than nothing. And we get 4% of our resources back as well when we use a synergy. You need to take the Magic Raid passive because we are going to use Barrier on the front bar for this passive. If you're not using Barrier, then obviously you don't need to take this one. You need to make sure you've got all of your passives for your race. Medicinal use is also very good. Potions lasting 30% longer. We should have 100% uptime pretty much on our potion effects with this build. And that is it for the passives. On to the champion points. So green CP, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, Steed's Blessing. Use whatever you want for the green CP. Blue CP, you take everything that doesn't need to be slotted. So everything along here. All of the ones that don't need to be slotted. Then we go with Ironclad. We go the Duelist Rebuff. And then you've got a few options here. So you can go Enduring Resolve and Unassailable. If you're not going to take any AoE damage or you're not going to take any damage over time, use Bulwark instead and or Cut in Defense, depending on the fight and what situation. For the red CP, I've gone with Rejuvenation for the consistent resources, but you could go with Sustained by Suffering instead. I've gone with Slippery. That is just because I don't want to have to waste stamina on breaking free because it's very expensive and we obviously don't have a lot of max stamina. I've gone with Expert Evasion again for the free roll dodge, so we don't have to waste stamina roll dodging if we need to do so. We take everything that doesn't need to be slotted here. And then I've got Bracing Anchor in there as well. You could go with Celerity. You could go with anything that you want really that's going to help you in whichever combat situation you're in. But those are the ones that I like to use. So I'm going to give this build a little test run and show you how to make it work. Okay, so how to play this build. So the main objective of this build is to farm ultimate from corpses and gear sets and then use your ultimate as much as possible. So we're going to slowly go through this. So pre-fight, you need to buff up. You're going to buff up with Beckoning Armor, Spirit Guardian, and Arcanist. Then you want to instigate combat with Frost Clench, Blast Bones, put down Element at Blockade, and then use ultimate as soon as possible. Once that's happened, you hit the enemy with Heroic Slash. You put up a Pierce Armor Taunt. Taunt anything else in nearby. You want to bash for Drake's Rush. Use Blast Bones on cooldown and as often as possible. In a fight where you don't have much to do, you just want to create corpses and use them as much as possible. When corpses are on the ground, just keep using Necrotic Potency to consume the ultimate gain from them and the heal. If you have an ultimate, just use it as soon as you can. If all the enemies are nearly dead on an ad pull, obviously don't use it, save it for the next one, and then you can just drop it on every single pull. Make sure you proc in your Arcasis with your potion as well. On boss fights especially, you want to recast your corpse skills when they are halfway through their duration. So you don't have to wait till they expire. You just wait until it's halfway through. So once the Arcanist is on 8 seconds, it creates a corpse. So we can use it. When the Mender is on 8 seconds, we can recast it. It creates a corpse. So these skills don't need to run down their full duration. You can use them after 8 seconds. And if you cast Beckoning Armor after 10 seconds, those will all create corpses halfway through their duration. So you want to recast these as often as possible before they expire, just to create the corpses. By recasting these often, combined with spamming Blast Bones wherever possible and the enemy dying, you will be using Necrotic Potency to gain huge amounts of ultimate. Obviously make sure you drink in potions to proc Arcasis. The Talk of Tonal Constancy will start to take effect when you're low on resources. You'll gain the increase to your recovery depending on which resource is low. And that's why we use the Tri-Focus passive on this build, so we can bar swap and utilize each side for blocking and benefiting from this mythic item. The benefit of the Potentate set will only come into play at any point where your ultimate is ready. So at that point, your ultimate cost will be reduced, and you need to use it as soon as possible. If you are struggling for sustain, you can use Balance instead for your Magicka. So I'm just going to show you here just how fast you can gain your ultimate back once we use it. So here we go. So as you can see there, it's a very active and fun way to play. You can also pull around 15k DPS using this build because of all the different damage sources that are coming out, all the different skills that are going off, and obviously the amount you drop in your ultimates. It's also giving you about 15k individual DPS, which is very, very nice. So it's a decent option for those dungeon groups where you're with random groups. So it's just very, very good to use this build in a variety of different situations. That is everything for this Soul-Eater Necromancer tank build. I hope you like the build. For more information, you can check out the written guide over on thetankclub.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.